what can we learn from those international experiences, the good, the bad? What can New Zealand take on board? And for the audience, feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll be going to that next, as well as upvoting other people's questions if there's other people's questions that you think are good. So first to Mehmet, maybe.
Oh, thanks, Undine. Yeah, so obviously my experience is working on a few schemes in the UK. I think obviously we try to take it out from that, we try to take it away from that political arena. We do, but it's actually quite difficult because it can be quite polarizing in terms of the conversation. Um, when I was talking earlier and I was saying about, trying to sort of build that vision. And you build that vision not just with members of the public, those hard to reach groups. It is also the political members as well, because you need them to be in line with you to champion. You need a champion to try and push this through. And if you don't have that along the way, similar to what's happened with our Cambridge example, the Cambridge example, it never sort of like got off the ground. So. Yeah, it was it. I think some of the key parts is even if you try to take it out from that political sort of arena, it's something that will inevitably end up there because at the end of the day, they have to make a decision that the people that they represent is actually going to be charged, and they need to see the benefits from what the scheme will bring. Scott, anything else?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. For there to be success, I think a scheme, it's helpful to start fairly small. And I think some of the ones that have been pushed forward have been too ambitious. I'd say Cambridge was too ambitious. I think the scale of it was far too ambitious. I think the same has happened in some other cities where I think to some extent, bless them, transport planners and economists will say, well, this will fix the congestion. But what you need to do is demonstrate on a small scale that it actually works, it's not frightening, and you can do something bigger. Now, if we think of Auckland, you might think about the downtown, you might think about one motorway corridor or one corridor, and just show, look, we're doing this in the morning peak for 2 hours, we'll see how this works. And show people that actually it performs well, it's not raising a lot of money because it won't on that scale, and say, well, do you like the results of this? Because we can do more of that. And that's what has happened in some of the successful places. I mean, Singapore obviously has done that from a downtown cordon to now a network with 70 odd charging points, and they're putting a more elaborate system in now. But also Stockholm, which started with its cordon and then put it through on the bypass route through that, it has scaled up. I think you have to demonstrate it. People don't trust that this will actually make it better for them. I think by focusing it on time and location, I don't think you should run it all day. I think you should run it at peaks, maybe morning peak and then afternoon peak. You have to communicate really clearly. People need to know where and when this work will operate. And I know my experience from Manchester was that 40% of people polled thought that the Ring motorway, which was the cordon point, they'd be charged if they drove on the motorway rather than the motorway being the bypass for it. And then people just said, no, this is ridiculous. I've got no alternative. It's like if you want to charge the Western Ring route in Auckland to say, well, what am I doing? There's no public transport for me to replace those trips. So communicate very clearly. It's not a toll, and start small and scale up and make it easy for people to use and understand. And over time, you can expand it and make it more sophisticated, more interesting. I'd minimize discounts and exemptions. I think there are some obvious ones, which Carly mentioned. I think emergency services, people with disabilities, there are ones that you can obviously exclude, but I would try and keep a lid on that. Otherwise, look, London basically had made taxis and what is Uber until recently all exempt, and they just drove around all day in central London, picking up all their jobs. And you don't want to do that.